Um,
Hey, we're here.
hey, all right, all right. Welcome to the Sunday live power chat with Takiyah and Nancy. Oh, what a beautiful day it's been so far. We come here every Sunday around the 6:30 p.m. Eastern time hour, generally. But I have house guests and am adjusting to the new routine, so we switched things up this week. Um, However, we really aim to assist in the elevation of the world, right? We do this through the kinetic life revolution, which assists and guides heart-centered seekers and leaders to really aligning with their essential nature and and to take on the journey of personal freedom, the alchemy and the creation of personal freedom through the release of weight that does not serve them. And that might be mental, emotional, physical, whatever it is, whatever form it takes that's become the matter with you, that is getting in your way of elevating your life and really
Mm.
looking for your true height that you're capable of, in any area of life, really. And mostly, if we have a foundation that is congruent, one that is, aligns our hearts, and our heart's calling, then everything else falls into place. It's when we aren't living authentically, when we're living out of alignment with the truth of ourselves, we aren't congruent with our intentions, that things go awry.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is what we're here to talk about, and these are the types of kind of global topics and universal topics that we touch on here every week. And tonight we're talking about the shadow. And this word is another buzzword to me, and it's so funny. I am a little bit triggered by buzzwords, like,
All right,
because
truth is out. Truth is out.
my tolerance for BS is just a little bit, uh, uh, you know, uh, it's low. I'm very much a straight shooter. Like, I like to go right through the bush. I don't want to go around the bush or over the. I want to go right through the. I don't even see the bush. What bush? And if there's an elephant, we're talking about the elephant. If it's sitting between you and I, we're going to talk about that, because I'm not going to pretend like I don't see it. And I just really appreciate that type of interaction, a type of engagement. And it's not to say that saying the word shadow is in any way inauthentic, because it's a great, captivating word that can cover a lot of things. But ultimately, what everyone's talking about, whether they're talking about shadow work or programs, or they're talking about pain patterns, or they're talking about, any of the words that people use, limiting beliefs, all those types of words all mean the same thing. And they all come down to the simple phrase, I don't feel good enough. And there
There
are
you go.
lots of nuances, and there are lots of, offshoots of that. But ultimately, every human being at some point in their life deals with not feeling good enough. And if that's not the word choice that you select, it's okay, because it
Mm-hmm.
shows up as a whole lot of other things. And that's really, I think, the one of the larger discussions I think that can be had to help really, kind of take away the mystery of what it means to, have shadow work being done. Because when people say that, what is it that you mean? Well, let's talk about that. Have you heard that word used before, Nancy?
I have it. I've used it myself. I think I don't know that I've said shadow work, but I talk about my own
Hmm.
shadows. The things that uh it's because I'm a visual person and I have no idea if that's the same meaning when I started seeing it, if it was the same meaning as shadow work was about, but it essentially is. But without even knowing that phrase existed, I was seeing shadows because I figured, you know what, you're a light and the light shines forward. And so anything beyond the light, if it's behind you, it's in the shadows. And so it's the things you don't want to look at. It's the things that you like ignore. But yeah, you're right. So like, but what am I ignoring? Is it's all the things that make me feel not good enough, not
Right.
competent enough, not worthy enough, not something enough, not enough. And I
Exactly.
haven't healed it. So, yeah, I've definitely
Exactly.
heard it.
Exactly. And so that is what we're talking about. We're talking about that's just, and I'm not dissing any of it because I've used the word shadow or the phrase shadow trails before because, um, shadow trails are, I believe, kind of the remnants of what's left after we've had trauma, things that follow us, and that can be. And I use trails because you can follow them back, and you can see then kind of how they've started to form. And you don't always have to follow it back. You can just deal with the energy of the thing and deal with what you know, and how it's showing up currently. You don't have to follow it back, but it allows you to if you were present and it's recent, because that's the other thing. The shadows that people are talking about, and these, which I refer to as cycles of fear, they don't just start when we're kids, and I know that is kind of, when people explain how trauma and pain patterns and programs begin, they usually talk about that age between, that age range between 0 and 12, when we're susceptible to, the ideas and ideals and judgments, and accepting everything from authority figures as like a sponge, and it settles into our subconscious. And, that's how we begin to form our behaviors that allow us to feel like we fit in and belong, and mostly is for survival. And then we carry those, into adulthood, and that when they no longer serve us, it's time to take a look and re-engage our beliefs that have been, formulated, so that we can decide if they're still true for us now, if they're still working for us now, because a belief is something that should be able to change with the introduction of new information. So if you're holding on to your beliefs so tightly and not allowing them to shift with the introduction of new information, you might want to look at that as perhaps one of your shadows.
Well, I like the fact that you call it trails because it's like the little crumbs, and right? If you want to just take it down to basic talk, it's the old fairy tale Hansel and Gretel, and they left the crumbs so that they could find their way back. And that's because we leave little fragments of things that go along the way. So yeah, those trails, and the other thing I also wanted to touch on was that I thought was a good thing that you mentioned was that whole time period of birth to age 12, all the stuff that happens. Not everybody's aware of that. How formative we are for so long, and like some people think it's just maybe the first 5 years of your life,
Mhm.
are really formative, but honestly, there's a lot of stuff that goes on between 0 and 12 that
Mhm.
whether or not because you really weren't paying attention, you were just being a kid doing your thing, and it all comes in like a big old sponge.
Right.
And then, when things aren't working the way you want them to, sometimes you do have to go back and follow that little crumb trail
Right.
back to like, okay, so maybe there's something here I need to work on. So if we want to call those shadows,
Right.
like
Right.
shadow work, let's just call it what it is. It's
Yeah.
you have some healing to fix, healing to get to. You have some trauma, and I think that's another word that is a buzzword that people may overuse in things, but trauma, it does not have to mean absolute devastation. Your world crashed down around you. I remember thinking, well, I haven't had trauma. It's like, my world wasn't devastating as a child, but trauma is a whole lot more than big things. It's all of the things that shake you, right?
Well, I know what you're getting at, and I agree that it's not just, it doesn't have to be something that's totally devastating, as far as, like, you know there was a mass killing, and you were witness, and you're left alone in the world, orphaned. Like, it doesn't have to be
Right.
as viscerally and visually tragic as that, in order to have a really deep and lasting impact. The smallest of things, a look, a tone of voice, could deeply
That's
impact.
mind blowing to me.
And so the part of what I wanted to get to was that it's not just that age range that we are
Right.
susceptible and forming these beliefs about ourselves and reinforcing them. It's every day.
Every day.
Every day. It's everything that we define as a win and a loss. It's everything that we, then fit into these categories that we've defined to keep ourselves safe. It's every way that we try to protect ourselves. It's all of those things. It's every time we get disappointed. It's every time we feel rejected. It's all the things that don't feel good. Or all the things that we do in order to get the good feeling, we get the good feeling, but the things we did that led up to it were so out of alignment with the truth of us that we feel terrible about it, right?
Mm,
So in some area, some way, some shape or form, it wasn't authentic. It wasn't true to who you are. It wasn't what your heart truly desired. It went
yes.
against you. There was resistance somewhere. And the energy with which you were pursuing or chasing or engaging was less than the highest of your truth, right? And so I think so often what happens is that these things get overlooked, and then they build and build and build because they show up with these masks on that we don't readily and apparently see and obviously call out as fear. And that's like the inability to say I'm sorry
Mm,
without hesitating, to be able to apologize for something if you were clearly incorrect, you were clearly, it was something that, or you did you had an intention, even if you take responsibility for what occurred, and then you know that it takes two to tango, and what the energy you contributed to something was less than your highest, and you just apologize for showing up as less than the truth of who you are and giving, having poor intentions and just
mm.
apologizing. Because really, when you apologize to someone else, you're apologizing to yourself.
Explain that.
Well, the first thing is that the universal concept of oneness is the truth. It's the truth that I operate with, and so that's the basis for every other thing that we talk about. And so to apologize to you is apologizing to myself, right? Because you are me, I am you. And that's for people who are not able to yet see that everything we do is about us and not about the other person. And so sometimes you're still thinking it's about them, so you feel like you need to apologize, or you don't want to, and you're resisting apologizing because you don't want to give them the satisfaction or whatever other, trail of, you know um, programmed or shadow or cycle of fear that you're in around what it means to be wrong, what it means to say I'm sorry, what it means to be vulnerable, what it means to admit, because I say admit, I use that word intentionally because there's one thing to profess, declare, to claim. And then there's another to admit something. And that means that there was somehow, shape, or form, some kind of shame or guilt around it. Right. And so clearly, if you have strong resistance against just saying those simple words, I apologize, I can understand not saying I'm sorry, because I don't like those words either, as far as, because I think I am is super powerful. And so saying I am and then using that 5-letter word isn't necessarily the highest vibration. So I apologize, is what I say when I'm meaning to, offer an olive branch and say that I made a mistake, or I did something that was out of alignment with my highest truth, and I would like to make amends, and just, I would like for us to take this opportunity to come closer and not have it be a divisive moment. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that you're worth it to
Yes.
me. I'm saying that I love you. I love me. I want us to be, connected. And so it's not even about the thing,
That's a key right there.
right? And I'm not apologizing out of obligation or fear of not being connected. I'm
Mhm.
I'm saying I apologize so that it's a way of connecting, and it's honest. Like, if I'm really truly apologizing because I felt like, oh, I could have done better there, I'm apologizing, and that apology is my way of saying I love you. I want us to be connected, and I might even follow up with those exact words. You know what I
Right.
mean? Not assume
Right.
that you know that me saying I apologize means that.
Yeah.
You know.
That's such a key little switch right there. I mean, it was you didn't, it wasn't the central thing that what you said, but for me to hear is that eh, that whole oneness piece, and I saying that I am anything is such a declaration of your who, like, it's a powerful statement. I am whatever comes after it, right?
Yeah.
So if we don't want to be saying that, the I am anything, maybe that's the whole thing, is that we hold off on certain things. Hey, Tim, because we don't want to say that I don't want to own this as being my identity, but
Right.
I apologize.
Mhm.
And when you can connect it being that it's part of you, that you're healing when you do it. And that I took the longest time to understand that, because it was things that I felt like if I was saying I apologize or I am sorry, that what I was telling to somebody, like there was a right and a wrong. Like I was wrong.
Right.
I was bad. This is, you were right. Somebody wins, somebody loses. And it is so beyond that.
Yeah.
It's so beyond it. And it's about a whole lifting of a weight off of you, really, because when you can say, I apologize, I could have done better than that. That phrase alone is about repairing you.
Yes.
And like you said, the whole connection is repaired in the process.
Yes. It's about coming back into alignment with your integrity, right? With
Mm,
yourself. And when you know that you're out of integrity with your highest self, and you're acknowledging it, so that you're also making a mental note so that next time you'll do better. I'm acknowledging, oh, and I'm taking notice of this moment. I'm marking it with an apology, just as a way of saying, oh, I want to do better. I can
yeah.
do better.
Yeah, that's not what I want that is not what I want for myself.
Right. Yes, that's not the energetic trail I want to leave in the world. you know
So the trail back to the shadow.
Yes. And I think, let's talk about maybe, I think this is a great way to help people to really understand, how this fear cycle plays out in their lives. And so what happens, by us touching on these various ways, the masks that fear wears, when it's showing up for us. So when you're unable to apologize, when you're unable to take responsibility for actions that were not in alignment with your highest self, when you're unable to say I love you with words that are other than the words I love you, right? When you are not, because it's really, there's I love you, and that can get old if you're not supporting it with actions that help the energy of love to be conveyed, right? The person could get tired of hearing it, especially if you keep repeating the same actions over and over, and then not taking responsibility for them,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you have a resistance, first of all, like that repeated resistance eventually becomes something more. It builds, it doesn't go away. So you have it somewhere in your body. And whenever we have resistance behind it, there's always some kind of pressure, right? Because resistance needs two things to push. It needs you to be pushing and something to be pushing against you to have resistance. So what is that about? What is the truth of that? What's underneath of there that's keeps? So if you have resistance, that means you have a blockage. That means there is not free flowing energy. That could be in one of your chakras. That could be, and that shows up in your life. And so by not being able to apologize to another human or even to yourself, you are limiting your expression of your fullness, limiting your authentic expression. You're limiting your potential for creating. You're limiting your potential for intimacy, right?
Right.
That resistance is not just, oh, I don't apologize, or I don't do anything wrong. And you know, we could get into a whole discussion about that, because that's a whole nother principle, that whole right and wrong operating system we have here in America. But um but yeah, so if you can just, even these two concepts that we've just touched on tonight, this this concept of oneness, and not just using that as a buzzword, but as a concept that we live by and that we can use as a foundational construct from which to relate to each other from and to heal ourselves from, which is also healing the collective, right?
I remember once in upon the time, and I was in my full adulthood. When I say these things, sometimes it makes me laugh because I wish that I had known myself more earlier on so that I could have enjoyed more relationships
Mm,
longer,
mm,
you know? And I didn't. So when I heard things like resistance, I remember thinking, I don't even understand what's that about? Resistance. I don't. And I was actually resistant to the idea that there was a thing called resistance, which is
right.
really kind of funny looking back, right? But
Mhm.
what do you mean resistance? I'm not fighting it. It's just I'm not going to do it. It's just not wrong. It's not right. And there was a whole thing about it. But sometimes um, if we just allow ourselves to hear ourselves,
Yeah.
we would learn so much. And
Yeah.
that's really what this all comes down to too, is hear yourself instead of just it's a matter of push, and you push it aside. When you
Mhm.
push these things aside, it's exactly what you said. It builds up. It's just like junk in the closet. You
Yeah.
just keep shoving that stuff into a drawer, you shove it into a closet, and you're just like, I'm not going to deal with that today. I'll deal with that another day. Eventually that stuff piles up pretty damn big, and you can't open the door, and you can't nothing comes through. So it's in a figurative sense and literal sense, that's exactly what it does. It just you pile things up, and you have to in order to allow yourself to have the freedom and the lightness and the to allow joy and connection and true connection
Yes.
to come through. We need to go back and follow the little trail sometimes, and ask ourselves, what's that about? Why? What? It's don't spend all day about why am I so resistant? Like, let's get to it. But let's just admit we're resistant.
Right. Just get that far. Because clearly, if you're unable to admit, I use admit consciously, that means that you're feeling some kind of a shame about it or guilt. Shame
Right.
meaning that you feel like there's something innately wrong with you, or guilt where you're feeling like you did something wrong, something you did was wrong. And
Oh,
so either way, you're hurting yourself, and you're limiting your
rehurting yourself.
yes, over and over.
Yes.
And thus the cycle, right? The cycle of fear,
Yep.
right, that you're on. And so when these cycles show up, there's a pattern to them. We've talked about it before. Do you want to share with them about how it's just how this pattern, the pattern that shows up over and over and over and over again, where we get triggered?
You go on with that because I'm having a connection issue right now. So go on.
Oh yeah, no worries. And so we get triggered, right? So there's some kind of a situation that occurs that reminds us of something that's happened in our past, and we get triggered, and so then what happens is we have a thought, and that thought then leads to us having some kind of emotion and some kind of physical reaction, right? That fight or flight, because we're talking about fear. It's either this kind of fear of survival as far as our physicality, and the fear of death, right? Physical death, or it's the fear of psychological and emotional death, right? Where we have these kind of pain cycles where we feel like either our ego's dying, or which is our personality, right? Who we identify ourselves as is dying. And it can feel like death. When people feel rejected, people can feel that so deeply that it makes them want to take their life and no longer be here in this
Such a deep that
ordeal.
is a deep topic in and of itself, but yes.
But that's the thing, and that's how important these cycles are. Fear kills people. It kills relationships. It kills people. It kills opportunity. It kills momentum towards success. It kills dreams. So this is super important. This is a potential doorway to freedom. This particular topic, this one where we identify our cycle of fear, this can change and save someone's life.
Yeah, that's huge. Thank you, Takiyah. My connection was a little unstable there for a second, but I think we're good here. Uh, yeah, when we can go into a cycle over and over again, and you start to, if you uh, to start the work, right? To start the work on yourself, to start that, all it takes is you sitting down and realizing that you've done this before. You've been in this place before. I've pulled the plug on my idea more than once. I've abandoned ship more than once. So those are the signs that I've done these things every time I got close to something I really wanted,
Mhm.
I pulled a plug, or I ran away, or I broke up the relationship. I left. There's all those things, and that all comes from. And I know that it's hard. It was hard for me to admit that it came from fear, because I'd like to think I'm not fearful, right? But
Right,
deep down, I'm just. I am. I don't want to be abandoned, and I don't like that feeling of like it's. You're right. It's your identity, even if the identity isn't. It's what you've attached to your identity. So that is your life, right?
right,
And it may not be real, like the way other people would see you, but you think and you feel that that is your whole identity. And if that's gone, you must be gone.
right.
And so that's why this work is really important. And if you want to call it shadow work, if you want to call it, you're healing your past trauma work, all it really is, you're right. It comes down to that one thing. It's all about being enough, and knowing that you're enough, and trusting that you're enough, and believing that you're enough, and removing the thoughts that you're not, with the idea and the knowing that you are.
That's right. And so this, the work, no matter what you call it, as long as you're doing it, right? As long as
Mm-hmm.
you're involved in the process, as long as you're becoming more and more self-aware. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the key, man, I think self-awareness is so sexy. It's so sexy. It's the new,
I love
everything.
that.
It's so sexy when you know yourself, when you can see yourself, when you see how you're showing up, and being willing then to be in relationship with people,
Mm.
friends, family, and partners, and allow yourself to be seen. It's such a beautiful, beautiful thing. I just don't know what could be sexier than that.
Oh, I
Oh,
love that.
like, give me that all day.
All day.
Be
And
willing
there's
to.
a glow.
Oh, shoot.
There's a glow when you start to feel really good about yourself, that I don't know, that you could have made the biggest faux pas ever. And when I think about that, I don't mean about as far as hurting yourself or hurting other people. I mean like a faux pas, like, you could walk out on the stage and trip, and your whole outfit falls apart. You're sitting there, you're stark naked, and be like, I'm okay with this. I'm okay, and I am still good. It's just when you can have that kind of a feeling about yourself that says, all right, let me try that again, because that was not what I intended to do. But not to beat yourself up, not to beat yourself down, and hide, or to go in that pattern again. And that's every single thing that you do. That's a glow that you have, and that's where I apologize. Let me try that again. That was not what I intended to do. It's that simple, but we put so much into it.
Yeah.
But it really is that simple. You've simply tripped, fallen, your underwear was shown. I don't know. I apologize. Let me try that again. I came in like a bull in a china shop. So not what I intended.
I think so much of that process that makes it feel so hard is our own judgment of it.
Mm,
And if we could just come to that space with just a little bit more curiosity instead of judgment,
yes.
and just the getting curious about what it's about and where it's coming from, and how am I showing up, like what's going on, and rather than, oh my god, you're so terrible, you're showing up like a total bee and I can't stand it, oh my god, you're such a scaredy cat, oh my, like, the critic has to be hushed, the critic has to be And not with resistance, right? Hushed in that it doesn't take hold, right? The
Right.
critics will come and go. So it's hushed in your receptivity of it. You're letting it come and
Right.
go, right? It's your lack of attachment to it. Because critic will come. That's the job. The ego does it. That's the job. We have a survival mechanism that gives us critic when we're trying to change something. So we don't change too much. So we don't lose ourselves.
That way you don't fall too hard. I don't want you to fall too hard. It's like, because you don't remember
Exactly.
what that is. That's real bad.
Right. So it's to me, I was just talking the other day. I was talking to somebody. I was just saying, like, it's such a practical joke. This whole thing that we're doing here on the planet, where we're like this limitless, vast, infinite being and this physical self. And even though we're in the physical self, we continue to expand beyond it into infinity. And yet we don't have complete access, conscious access to all the knowing. We have to like go inside and talk to the deeper, higher self in order to actually know who we are. Like, it's so ridiculous. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's hilarious. That's how I know God has a sense of humor. The whole thing is silly. So, but we're in this thing. We're doing it.
We're
So
doing it.
let's know how it works. If we just understand how it works, we can play the game. We can have fun with it. It doesn't have to be this like, devastating thing we endure. We can have a good time.
It puts a whole new level on resilience. Resilience doesn't necessarily mean stand up and hold your head down and get ready to be hit again. Resilience in the best way is to stand up and be all right with all that what just happened. And if the people around you don't get it, they can move along. I got a little note one day once from somebody that said, "You're just a little too much," but it wasn't worded that way. And you're just too much for me, you're too excited for me or something. And I thought, well, that's okay. Go find something that's not enough.
Right.
Because that's what I was like, if I'm just too much, go find something that's less than
Right.
much. I don't know what to say because I'm certainly not going to adjust this.
Right.
And have fun with all of that.
Totally. When you can see clearly, when you see through the matrix, when you understand that when people say things like that to you, it's them seeing you and actually probably being jealous of your freedom and the freedom and liberation and the connection you have to your joy, and they wish they had it. So they're trying to make you smaller so that they don't have to look at themselves and realize why they're playing so small.
It's
And
okay. Go find less.
and it's the thing, it's not even a judgment thing or like they're doing it wrong or bad. They're just choosing something different. And the more we can get to that place where we're just seeing as them choosing something different,
Yeah.
rather than us internalizing it and making them bad, making us right. That's because I don't want to become a snooty hierarchy, a spirituality
It's
person.
like drooling again. Like,
Like that's like the opposite of the point. We don't want to become a snooty spiritualist. Like everyone's just on their way, and our stuff shows up different than their stuff, and this is how their stuff is showing up, and they may not be ready to hear it, and they're not asking you, and so you can certainly so you then have the ability and the freedom to respond to it however you choose.
right.
And so do it however it feels best for you based on your own intentions. Like, what are you trying to create? Do you want to have more deeper relationship with them, or do you want them not being in your life? And whatever it is you choose,
Yeah.
your actions will proceed and have consequences, and you'll live that.
And as long as it's for me, as long as it comes from me actually sending them off with love, I feel good about it. It's just, and I can laugh about it and say what I say, but lovingly, you don't have to stay here. It's okay. I'm not, it's all right. I'm not going to change, but if this doesn't suit you, thanks for letting me know and go find what does. It's all good.
That's all.
I wish you well. And,
that's all.
I think,
so I've only talked about the first two steps of that cycle, right? So then after we get this trigger and we have this thought and we have also this physical response, then we also then follow it up with this like this trying to suppress that feeling, because the feeling that we're feeling is the one we've been trying to avoid by doing whatever behavior is that we were doing that brought about the trigger in the first place. So this whole thing is hilarious to me. It's just like it's a show. It's comedy, and yet and yet, it can feel very, very intense and serious. And so I'm not negating and or diminishing anyone's feelings in this instance. I'm just simply offering the potential for us to find levity in it all along the way, and not wait until 10 years from now when we feel healed, because the healing, it's always continuing.
Yes.
We're always
There is no I'm healed.
right. There's always on our way is what it is. And we can have certain perspectives that allow us to respond in a way that limits and diminishes, and hopefully we even get to a place while we're here where we eliminate our emotional and mental suffering. And then we're so simply purely living from creativity. That's amazing.
So fun.
And right. So there is that potential, and we can do it. If we can think it, we can certainly do it. So in that avoidance, which is a part of our resistance, right? When you're trying to avoid something, you're focused on it, and you're resisting it. It's pushing, you're resisting. So you didn't do a good job at avoiding what you were trying to experience. And so now you're feeling it, but the behavior that you then, perform then ends up confirming your worst fear, which was that you were not enough in whatever form that took. So today it's about apologizing, like not apologizing. So we're saying, I was in such deep resistance about not apologizing that now that person is me being mean to me because I didn't want them to see me as weak, and that's why I'm not apologizing. But now they don't want to be my friend anyway, and they see me as weak anyway because I wasn't able to own my own stuff, right? I wasn't able to say, take responsibility. So now I'm feeling weak anyway, and that's what I didn't want you to see me as. Oh my goodness. And so I went the roundabout
You just filled it.
Thing that I've been trying to avoid feeling. Oh my
Absolutely.
goodness. Right?
Yeah, you can't run from your own stink.
So then what we do after that, then we're feeling the thing anyway. Then we do some kind of other behavior that try to make us feel better. We try to numb it. We try to, make it feel better somehow. We drink, we gamble, we eat.
A million ways
for us. We do
we stay super busy with things that don't matter. Just
1000%, right? So we do all those things, and then we end up back in this feeling of that we were trying to avoid the entire time. like it's quicksand.
Let that sink in. Let that sink in. You're listening to this. Just let that, if nothing else sat with you, just think of the times that you've done that and how you actually ended up right where you were trying to avoid ending up. And I encourage you to laugh about it, because it's actually, like you said, life's like this big practical joke.
Yes, it is. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. And I know those of you
do the work
watching who have, experienced, some deep physical, emotional, mental, spiritual trauma, I just know I've been there. I had it all. I've been there. So you're not alone. And, it's just that it's possible to not be in the place where it defines you and any longer, or it's the concept that you've now written your entire life story about. It no longer has to be the thing that precedes you in the room. When I was so there was this outdoor at the beach, there was an outdoor party, and I was talking to someone, and he started his sentence off with all right, I got to tell you my sad story. I said, or not. Or not. I just wanted him to know he had a choice. Like you said, I have to, like it was a thing he had to do.
Not really.
No, you don't. And I'm not sure that I want to hear a sad story, but I just wanted him. In that moment, it just kind of came out, and I was like, no, or not. I mean, I'm just saying you can have the choice. Because, it's instinctual for me when I see possibility to like expand it. Like that's what you just said. I guess I have to tell you the set. No, or not.
Right. Oh, that's really good, actually.
And I didn't say it in a mean way or way, there was no malintent intended. But he was like, oh.
You should pause when you hear that, like, oh, you're right. I don't have to tell you. Maybe I want to tell you my sad story. Well, then, okay.
Right. Then say that and make that your choice, and that's cool. I'm just saying, or not, or
Or
don't say
not.
it the way you do in
Right.
your story. Either way, no judgment. I'm just offering that it's possible because when you hear something like someone says something that's just not quite true, and you're just like, huh, nope, nope, that's not quite true. That's what I've heard. And I hear things more and more like that. Anytime people use should or like, how did I end up doing something? Well, because you chose to. I mean, that's what happened. And people don't like hearing that, but
I
it's
know I don't.
but we choose it. Like we choose
Right.
it. And then so we choose to be doing the thing, and then we resent the person
Right.
that didn't do it, and that's why we think we had to do it. We shoulded ourselves into doing I have to do this thing now. No, you didn't have to.
You
You
know,
chose.
if you can live with those words honestly within yourself, if you can practice those words within yourself, it's amazing how quickly this work begins. When you can just start with little things like when you hear yourself about to say I have to, and you stop yourself and say, well, actually I don't have to.
Right.
Um yeah. These
And
things
that's
like
okay.
it was your choice. And even when things are terrible and you've chosen what you chose to get through them, I didn't have a choice. Well, you did have a choice, and you chose what you needed to choose to get through it, and it's all right.
Yes.
It's a crap. You had crappy choices, perhaps to choose from, but you chose. And I mean, I've done that, and it hurt to hear that. It was hard to hear that, but you know what? Until I was willing to own that, I was running around doing the same thing, letting it chase after me, and trying to avoid it. And the whole time, I was actually proving that I was powerless because I
Right.
kept blaming the fact that I didn't have any choice. And like, no, you're choosing it. And the confidence I had after I said, yeah, I did choose it.
Right.
Amongst all the choices I had, this was the one I felt was the best one at the moment. I don't like the choice because none of them were really great. But
Right.
when you own something like that, it puts your head into a different space.
Mhm.
It, it it's and I think it moves you towards the enoughness
Yes.
because there's a confidence that says, yeah, you know what, I'm smart enough to make my choices. I'm powerful enough to make my choices.
1,000%. And you know what's so important about that is that choice is empowerment, is freedom, right? Our freedom lies in our ability to choose.
Yeah.
And so if we deny that we chose it, then we can never be free.
Boom.
So I think bring
Takia.
bring this thing in for a landing.
No, absolutely, because it brings me right into the space of you are amazingly made, and saying that when I wrap up always makes me it puts it all together with a bow that uh, there is no one on this earth, knowing in the universe that is designed to be you except for you. And when you know that, and when you get that through, ah, you get to design whatever that is. No one can tell you what that's supposed to be because you're the only one who is.
Yes, so true. And you are more than enough. You are necessary to the unfoldment of the cosmos. And your genius is needed in the world, and we await it.
Yes.
Mm. Namaste. Peace and love. Shanti, shanti, shanti.
So we'll see you back here.
Same bad time, same bad channel. Actually, different bad time. Pow, poof, wow, poof. Um, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time next week, and yeah, we're look forward to talking with you soon. Check us out at K Life Revolution. We'll drop the link to the group in the chat. If you're interested in changing your life, moving toward freedom, releasing physical weight, emotional, mental weight, really getting in touch with the truth of who you are, illuminating your life, jump starting it, catapulting yourself into the next with joy and love attached, trailing behind you.
Ooh,
You ascend. Yes.
beautiful.
We
Join
love
us.
you.
Be
Talk
with
to you
us.
soon. Peace.
Right.